Oh, it's a missed opportunity. I guess I should have had that Grand Theft Auto Thug Life music playing in the
Mm.
background to introduce two of my favorite survivors of January 6th. We've got William Pope and George Tanios. Guys, welcome back to the show. How are you fellas doing today?
Okay, pleasure to be with you, Jason. We made it through the thug life. Here we are.
George, you
I
holding
can't.
up?
Yeah, I'm holding. I'm looking at his glasses here. I can't tell if that if those are real or if that's.
Is it real
Oh,
or is it
oh,
AI?
I need a pair of those now, Will.
That's
I
the
need a pair
number
of
one
those.
question of 2026. Is it real or is it AI? So I think today is a very important day to have you guys on because a lot of people have been hearing the news that there was this big FBI raid over there in Fulton County. I think a lot of people have lost sight, Will, of the fact that January 6th was all about the election. It's become about what the lunatics in the media want people to remember as an insurrection. But I think a lot of people probably don't even remember what the basis of it was. What do you think this thing in Fulton County is going to do? Will you guys be vindicated?
Until we get the information, I don't know what we're going to end up finding out there. Yeah, obviously the context of January 6th was a disputed election, but everybody had a different reason for being there. And my position was, it'd be good for the country to do a recount just so the people would be confident in the results of the election. As a PhD student, like I like to see the data. I haven't seen the data even now, so I can't go one way or the other. But I do know people have a motive to cheat. There may have been an opportunity to cheat, and just for the good of the country, the good of confidence in our public institutions, I think it would be good to, uh, you know, just have a recount, and that way people could be confident in it. But I was there in Washington hoping to cover the events of the day from a Kansas perspective on my news website, and it unfolded in a way that none of us ever expected, and pulled George and I into that.
That's for sure. Now, the thing is, I agree with what you're saying that it would be interesting to see the data, but even just today, we've already been seeing officials in Georgia, or one of the senators from Georgia came out and he said, oh, now they're going to, the FBI and Donald Trump are going to alter the results somehow. I don't know. Did you get a chance to hear that, George? That seemed like a
They're,
crazy thing to say, didn't
they
it?
are in full panic mode, and it is a beautiful sight to see. I feel like it's been a long time waiting, and that's kind of where me and Will are. Is where has the administration been the past year? And here they are. They're raiding them now, and they are in full panic mode. Now they're claiming the FBI won't, lose track of the boxes somehow. But if they're keeping inventory of it all, they have nothing to hide. So they have nothing to lose too if they're correct with a recount. Um, I think J6ers are happy that it's finally happening. We're seeing something because that was a huge contention point. Those 11,000 some odd votes, and I think we all thought the election was stolen, and we went there on J6 thinking that Mike Pence would potentially stop the election, stop the certification or at least question it. And that's when, all these suspicious characters and people stormed the Capitol, turns it into this insurrection. So this is a nice little chip off the block to help us kind of get to where we think we could be as far as the truth coming out. Um, but what has taken so long? That's been everybody's question. And
Yeah.
Will's frustration is there as well. What's taken so long? We're 5 years in here.
Well, and you guys have been really, I think, great spokespeople, very vocal about some of the ongoing harm, right? I mean, George, you used to have a successful sandwich restaurant. What's been happening with you since January 6th? Has your situation improved since the last time you and I spoke?
Well, yeah, I've been self-employed. It's been pretty good, but there's a lot of road hurdles. Like right now, I'm looking at a few different locations here in town to reopen my business. I would say the landlords don't want to rent to me because of
Wow.
my political views, or
Wow.
there's been hurdles with banking. There's been hurdles with, getting into social circles here in town due to, our support for Trump. There was some frustration on my part the past 2 days now that everyone's sticking up for this guy, Alex, that got killed in the streets of Minnesota. And they're saying, oh, well, he just had a gun and this and that. But, many of us and our peers and family asked, what were we doing there that day on January 6th? What were they doing? What did you do there that day? Why did you go? And 9 out of 10 of us, 99% went to make our voices heard peacefully and patriotically without our weapons. But that didn't stop the government from calling us terrorists and throwing us in jail and sitting in jail for 6 months and years in lawfare. So there is, it's been pretty crazy, but, it's in God's hands, and we'll keep moving.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing that you guys are essentially still living as second-class citizens here in our own country. Will, you've had some problems with employment, right? You were a PhD, or you were trying to tell us what was going on with Kansas University, or something happened, right?
Yeah, I'm in a PhD program at Kansas State University. I'm still in that program, and hopefully I'll finish here in the coming year. But at the time of January 6th, I was teaching at Kansas State University, and it, after the arrest, and actually I think before the charging documents came out, my school was able to get a copy of that, I believe, from the FBI.
Wow.
Yeah. Before it got unsealed, and they terminated my employment.
Right.
And so, I'm not the only one who can say they lost a job or, whatever. But yeah, there was a great weaponization of government and society as a whole against January 6th defendants. And I'm still banned from Facebook and Instagram. I'm still banned from PayPal. And, there is still kind of a social stigma, which makes it difficult to get a job. Even if a person might want to hire you, maybe they don't want to deal with the overwhelming stigma that other people have about J6ers. So, yeah, we're dealing with that now. But, we're going to keep pushing forward. And
it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that we are American citizens really dealing with this 5 years in, and you're seeing what they're protesting in Minneapolis. When I sat in jail those first few months, we all were wondering where was our protesters? Where were they? Where were the American patriots and the Trump supporters? Why weren't they protesting Joe Biden's election? To the extent that they are now. They're all protesting ICE and whatnot, but J6ers really got left in the dark, and it's still to this day. We all got our pardons, and not all, but there are many that still haven't. But there's a lot of questions there, and back to this Atlanta thing. Hopefully, it helps break the ice and really get to the bottom of it and vindicate us, because we all went there that day because I think 99% of us thought the election was stolen to some extent, and that's what we were told, and we never got to the bottom of it.
I think one of the problems that I anticipate, I hope you're right, by the way, but one of the problems that I anticipate is that when we talk about the lunatic left, and I haven't had it nearly as bad as you guys have. I didn't get put in jail. I haven't, had the type of discrimination that you're talking about, but I have faced lawfare from these type of, media enemies, people who twist the truth, who seem to have the ability to control outcomes in court or manipulate them at least. I've fought, people in the Lawfare Institute, and a lot of people, Norm Eisen and, Ben Wittes, and people who seem to be really connected to the plans and the execution of January 6th. And the problem that I foresee is that I think from one side of this argument, we have a group that wants to rely on law and order and kind of come to the truth and have it be answered and done. And on the opposing side, like we saw today with this senator who just said, oh, now Donald Trump is going to, somehow alter these records. They took control of them and they're going to alter them. It seems like no matter what the truth is, they're going to just keep on lying and keep on making up stories. Don't you think, Will?
Well, ironically, why did the DOJ have to alter body cam footage to where they would cut out a portion where a cop was punching a guy repeatedly, you know? Like, I went into detail on that in one of my motions, but I noticed on that article you brought up a minute ago about Alex Preddy, and I do think the shooting was probably not a good shooting, but there in the heat of the moment, it's very difficult to make out what is going on, and I think that the officer will probably be, exonerated. But look at the headline there,
Right.
Jason. Two federal agents
Oh yeah.
escalated an encounter, right? And like if you would have used that framing for January 6th, and there were several incidents where law enforcement made decisions that really did escalate situations at the Capitol.
Ooh.
You would have been vilified for doing that. But the left can get away with it. And again, a tragic situation. But, I always bring up the example on January 6th, they had different police responding. And, one police line showed up and they were going to go to the West Center. But the crowd of people was so thick, they didn't want to push right through the crowd. And so they decided to walk all the way around the Capitol to get to where they were going. And then you had another line that did the same thing, and they had no issue getting there at all. But you had a third line that they made the decision to push right through the crowd, and they were forcefully pushing people out of the way, clearly upsetting people, initiating contact, and a lot of people ended up getting assault charges just because they were setting that off. So there is truth to like law enforcement needs to make sure they're not being too aggressive, and sometimes you can avoid a confrontation just by um, you know going around or making a different decision or not pushing as hard. So and that can go for the right or the left. But whenever you go to a protest like that, as J6ers have learned, like your life can be changed in an instant because
Yeah.
chaotic events unfold around you, and you have like a split second to try to understand what's going on and make a decision. And there are a lot of people who got caught with an assault charge due to incidental contact or whatever. And this
Didn't you and
Alex
your
Preddy guy,
brother get kind of pushed into the building?
yeah, I put a video out on that not too long ago. Yeah, there was a guy who had a federal security clearance who repeatedly pushed me into the building. But yeah, I mean, it just the scene became chaotic very quickly, and I was trying to get back out, and it didn't work out that way. And so, and that was probably the situation the government tried to use against me the most, even though like I didn't jam my flag into the door like they claimed. Like the video clearly shows, I couldn't even see the police bumping the flag into the door.
Jason, I got 3 assault charges because someone else sprayed the police with the pepper spray that I didn't give.
Right,
So,
the bear spray, right? I remember
the
that.
bear spray was never used. I actually took it away, and the FBI was able to chop the video and use my words against me. Hold on, not yet. It's still early. And that was grounds for a conspiracy, which led to a 12-count felony, 3 assault charges. But here you're watching these guys in Minneapolis all geared up, fighting with the cops. The guy's got a gun on his side. He's kicking out the cop car. She's nearly running over the police, and and everybody's up in arms over it. But J6ers have been treated like trash for years now. And what the government and the DC judges and jury pool, like if you saw the protest yesterday in DC on how they were screaming this guy's name and they're blaming everybody everybody on the Trump administration for killing this guy. It's just so bizarre seeing it all play out 5 years later, and it's nuts. They haven't treated us fairly at all.
It's almost amazing to think about how that could possibly happen, that disparity that you're describing, George. I think maybe if you can turn the volume down, George, on your computer, that might help that buzzing a little bit. But the disparity, it's so strange to even think how they could possibly make that happen because, you're right to point it out, George, that, you guys have been treated like criminals. And then in Minnesota, you've got the governor telling people to go fight with the cops. It's crazy.
Nuts.
Well, and the video that came out yesterday, the Alex Preddy guy, apparently he had a confrontation with ICE officers a couple weeks ago, and he was kicking out their taillight. Then they come out of the vehicle to take him into custody, and he is like wrestling with them, fighting with them. And
they let him go.
Yeah, and they let him go. And that would have been like sensationalized if that were done on January 6th. And yet, I think in a way that guy felt like he could get away with wrestling with them again. And unfortunately, the second time around, he got shot, which, tragic thing. I don't wish the guy to die, but, you kind of, I feel like the first encounter kind of shaped the second one.
Yeah, we're called domestic terrorists and white supremacists for being Trump supporter, and this guy's whiter than me. I mean, like, it's the craziest thing ever.
Ooh. And he's fighting with the cops.
He's fighting with the cops. I'm running the opposite direction.
He's got that Minnesota winter tan, George.
Yeah.
I mean, we should also say, whatever it is that you two guys did or did not do on January 6th, you were not like kicking cop cars, fighting with the cops. You weren't doing that. And I mean, look, obviously everybody support the Second Amendment, but I don't think you can reasonably expect to fight with the cops and not put yourself in extreme risk of getting shot.
Right.
Yeah, and George, Jason, I tell people that, I don't support anyone assaulting police, whether it was on January 6th or, ICE in Minnesota. There was some incidental contact on January 6th that I don't think they should have charged. But they charged it as assault. But there were other examples of people who were swinging baseball bats at police, which I don't endorse at all, right? But I also don't endorse what that guy was doing, fighting with the police in Minnesota, kicking the vehicle. And, bad things end up happening when you get closer to chaotic situations like that. And yeah.
Now, Will, I think you are probably best known for being a pro se criminal defendant, which was just so impressive that you were able to do your own criminal defense without an attorney and succeed. You have basically challenged that old saying of you can't fight City Hall because you fought the law and the law lost. What's happening with your case? Anything still going on with the case?
Yeah, that old saying, only a fool has himself for an attorney, right?
I think a lawyer made that up, though.
Yeah. But I am the exception, apparently. But the criminal case is over. I am still kind of fighting with the government, fighting with the Trump DOJ about retention to discovery, because typically a defendant like George would be able to keep any discovery that they gave him, and you have that documentation of your case. But in my case, the judge or the government filed a motion to require me to return that at the end of my case. And the judge approved it, which made my protective order conditions different than every other defendant. And I am still fighting that. And I'm on appeal right now. And I have a brief due here in a little bit. Yeah.
But isn't that weird, Will? I mean, everybody thought, and I don't know that we have an explanation for this. I don't know that you have an explanation for it. Everybody thought, Trump is coming in. The savior, Kash Patel, is taking over the FBI. The brilliant Pam Bondi is taking over the DOJ. And now everything's going to go our way, but yet they're still fighting you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not happy with it. Like, that for me crushed my optimism about the Trump DOJ probably earlier than a lot of people. And so, I was ranting probably back in March and April of last year. And, now a lot of people have come around and be like, yeah, what is Pam Bondi doing? We'll see where they're going to go with a few of the things, but there does need to be accountability for the weaponization of government that happened to J6ers. And they're really not talking about that. Even with the, a lot of people are getting excited about the Fulton County thing, but, the weaponization of government is an issue that you can't ignore. Like, people, their lives were destroyed Trump issued an executive order acknowledging that government was weaponized against January 6 defendants, and disproportionately compared to, people in Portland and Minneapolis in the summer of 2020. And, he ordered there to be accountability for that. And up till now, we haven't really had that. We're going to keep pushing, but yeah, I'm not thrilled that I have to be fighting the Trump DOJ over a pretty minor issue, in the grand scheme of things. But to me, it's big because I want to have the documentation of my case.
Sure. And George, what about you? Anything still happening with your case?
No, my case finally got resolved. I was in a civil suit after my criminal matter got resolved. But I was in a $30 million lawsuit with President Trump brought to us by the Sicknick family. And that didn't resolve until March.
Wow.
And how that was resolved was I had renter's insurance, and they ended up covering my liability on that end and ended up finally settling just to end the matter.
Oh my God. So wait a minute. So your insurance had to pay Brian Sicknick's family?
Yes, to the tune of nearly $300,000.
What does that do to your insurance premiums?
Really nothing. So, it was a homeowner's renter's insurance, and when I filed for the case, they ended up picking it up on the very last day. This is 2.5 years ago now, and they ended up suing me as well, the insurance company, trying to get off the hook from representing me in this matter.
Oh my God.
And they used the same terminology that the initial lawsuit against me used, saying that I was part of, an army, I was an insurrectionist, I was trying to overthrow the government, it was an act of war. And, and I'm in panic mode, thinking that, again, President Trump, this was before he almost got shot and all that. So all this stuff was transpiring while I'm tied to this legal matter, unsure if President Trump would be getting in. So once he got in, about 3 months into it, Julian's side ended up settling. They paid a settlement, and then my insurance covered the bulk of it. And, it was really out of my hand.
So the insurance company wants to declare it an act of war because these are going to be things that absolve them of liability. So
right. They tried.
Now, I seem to remember from our previous conversations that this was all lies, that you did not actually attack Brian Sicknick. Yeah. And it's interesting to see. Look at who's written this article about it here, George. This is the Lawfare Institute. The Lawfare blog is saying, 2 charged with assaulting Brian Sicknick, U.S. Capitol Police officer who died after January 6th. So this is exactly the type of piece of crap that some lawyer for an insurance company could bring into court.
Yeah, the reason why I started following you about 2 years ago was some of the same attorneys that I was dealing with whereas the ones that you were dealing with. And I'm like, oh, these assholes,
exactly.
From DC, they're, it's the same circle, and they get to sue the president and all these people and tie us up in court, and you can't really say anything. So, at least in my part. So, but by the grace of God, I didn't have to put any money out of pocket for really any of my legal this whole time. My state prosecutors covered me. The head lead here, in, for my criminal matter, being charged with almost murder, they helped me out immensely. But Will was able to defend himself, but he wasn't dealing with the same charges I was. So I was terrified of what could potentially happen to me. So between the criminal matter, I didn't put any money out of pocket, and the civil matter, I didn't put any money out of pocket either. But
but somebody who didn't have the insurance that you had would have really been kind of up a tree and might have had to make some kind of deal. If my memory serves correctly, you've also got a wife and a kid, right?
4 children now. Yeah.
4 children. And everybody's doing all right?
Yeah, thank God. Everybody's great.
See, and that's the interesting thing, right? Because, like, on one hand, it's terrible that you've lost your business and had all these legal problems and everything, but it's just so amazing that you've been able to keep your family together. There's other people who have lost their wives, lost contact with their kids. Will, I know, look, I sympathize. I don't know your personal situation, but I get to a certain age where if you're not married, it starts to become difficult to do. And you've described some of the social stigmas that you've faced. I'm sure it affects your ability to date when women find out that you've been involved in January 6th, or I don't know, maybe it helps you. Are you a January 6th pimp now, or what's up? You don't have to tell us. I don't mean to get personal.
Fortunately, Jason, as I noted in numerous court filings,
he's dressed like one.
I am totally innocent and still good looking. So regardless of the false allegations that are out there, I am a very hot commodity eligible bachelor.
Good to know.
I haven't tied it up yet, but I feel like I'm in good shape in that regard.
That's good. That's good. I didn't mean to ask any personal questions, of course. Well, I'm just saying everybody has their own set of hardships from the outcome of this thing, and it's ongoing. I mean, we've just passed the 5-year, I hate to use the word anniversary for something tragic like this. There's 5, I think, different people who committed suicide, and but I mean, even 5 years on, you guys are still trying to rebuild your lives.
Oh, it's going to take a long time, no doubt. At this rate, it's going to take us a couple decades because all odds are stacked against us still. If even just being a Trump supporter, but as being a J6er, and once you look up our names and whatnot, it's there for good. And you could tell right away, the liberal media and the left, they have the top slots online, and once you look up the name, I mean, to this day, if I look my name up, it says, oh, George Tanios assaulted an officer. I didn't do such a thing. I wasn't was charged with it, which is what they wanted, so it could stick somewhere in there. But to get to the nitty gritty, and to bring that up, even my fellow J6ers, I've been labeled a rat in the J6 community.
What?
Yes. The J6 community has labeled me a rat with no facts or claims to the matter, just their words and hearsay. But because they can't do the research themselves, they can't look it up, and they can't believe that the government would charge me with 12 felonies to drop them all and give me 2 misdemeanors. Right?
So people are jealous if they got in trouble when you got off relatively.
Right.
My God, the complexities of it's almost like a soap opera in this whole January 6th community.
100%. And they all love we didn't kill a cop that day and this and that. Yes, you are correct, but only 2 people were charged with that. So the J6 grifting community has used the "we didn't kill a cop that day" to help grift to their funds and their sympathy on the American people. But only 2 people were charged, and one of us was completely innocent. That was Julian Cater and George Tanios. And George Tanios was running in the opposite direction. I didn't go in the building. So I'm a J6er by default, by somebody else's actions. But I'm okay with that. But I also get a lot of shit from the J6 community for even mentioning that. They said I should take it with the grain, should take it with pride. But, they don't understand when you work 20 years in a business, blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
4 children, beautiful wife at home, and the shit that I lost,
Right.
I'm not bitter about it, but it's frustrating because you got a guy like Michael Fanone, okay, and this is when we started talking last week. They instantly want to go set up, gifts and goes and raise money and tour the country and all this and all that. And it's a little frustrating, but I'm happier at home with my family and kids.
That is good. But let's pivot to that for a second, because I think that is what prompted me to contact you guys. Everybody knows how much I love Ivan Raiklen, who I tried to hire to be my attorney and tried to get me thrown in jail, which makes me sort of very suspicious of anything and everything that he does. But he was getting into a little bit of a shouting match with Officer Fanone there. What do we know about this, Will?
Well, I only know what I see from the videos that are out there. I actually thought Ivan did a pretty good job of handling the encounter. If you've ever talked to Ivan in person, he is a very sharp guy. He has he's been trained in manipulative tactics by whatever intelligence agency he worked for. And Fanone was kind of out of his league on that. So,
it was nice to watch. It was great to watch.
It's good theater.
Yeah, I mean, and Ivan is pretty much all theater, but yeah, Fanone kind of got flustered, and he was there with Harry Dunn and Ganell, and
Yeah,
they didn't look good. It wasn't a good look for them,
No, I do have to agree with you that, it's one question of whether or not this was an authentic encounter or whether Ivan is, in on creating psychological operations and media opportunities and whatever. But it was nice to see Fanone made to look an ass. But I mean, could you imagine, forget about any of the three of us individually, but a person going into Congress there and, dropping F-bombs and pointing their finger in the chest of somebody, you'd get your head cracked and handcuffed and dragged out of there in about 4 seconds, wouldn't you, George?
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's just so bizarre. It's political theater, It's just so bizarre. It's nice watching it online, live, because I get to work from home, or I have the luxury of kind of working in my own, own time. So I get to watch a lot of this stuff live when it comes up, and very exciting to watch certain things like that play out. But yeah, if we did that, I mean, there'd be hell to pay for us.
Yeah.
Ivan apparently knows how to maneuver around DC real well, and knows how to stay out of trouble and not be indicted for J6, because he was much closer than I was.
Right. He knows how to not be indicted for J6.
Yeah, that was frustrating for me. It's like, there's several people that weren't indicted, and my ass got thrown in jail and lost it all, and I was hundreds of yards away. But it's interesting to see what's happening and how it's playing out. I just try to warn some J6ers to be careful who they follow and, who they put their faith in, because a lot of this shit's all talk. We're going on 5 years. He's the deep state marauder, but I never seen him catch anybody. He went and interviewed with Jake Lang 2 months ago, and Jake Lang did some shitty podcast saying, I'm going to go on a rant here for a second. Calling Ivan Ranklin life after pardon. And Ivan's like, but I'm not a J6er. I wasn't pardoned. He said, well, you're on our team, this and that. It's like, what a fucking clown show. You know what I mean? And they've become the face of J6. Now, Will's pretty prominent. Everybody knows who Will is, and he put up a big fight, and everybody knows.
I keep a low profile,
Yeah, I mean, but some of these guys, some of these other J6ers and people in the community have tried to be the face of J6. And it's a fucking complete joke. The fucking J6 choir, they're over there fucking singing at the the J6ers will know when they hear this, but I didn't go to J6 to become part of a choir and be a fucking hero. And now these guys out here that went to J6 with weapons, fellow J6ers, if we can call them that, are grifting pieces of shit. And they're in there singing Kumbaya, and they're doing a billboard, and they're wearing tight jeans, and they're going here, and they're posting videos from the beach and saying how, they're helping everyone out. It's all bullshit. So,
on the one hand, none of us wanted to go through what we went through, but we did. And going through that fire kind of forged us into, who we've become now, right? And I think there were a lot of dynamic people who were there at the Capitol on January 6th, and we've become more dynamic because of what we've gone through. But we also have to, not let J6 be all that we're about for the end of time. Yeah. And even I still post about it a lot, but I still know that we need accountability for things that happened. So I would like to move on fully, but we do need accountability, but we also need to have the mindset that we need to build going forward, right? J6 can't be the final chapter in your book. Write a new chapter, write a new book in your life, and do new great things, right?
Will,
do some things.
Will,
yeah.
Not to cut you off. I'm okay with people claiming J6 all the way, but don't go out there into the public and call yourself a hero when you went there with 2 tomahawks, guns on the side, thousands of posts, talking about how you want to do this, because all that stuff played into the insurrection narrative. Okay.
No, I
But
agree.
this is where the other J6ers get mad at me, because I was pinned at the top. They wanted to hang me all the way up there and everyone else, and I didn't do shit. And I was okay with that. And I was okay with taking the blows. But here we are 5 years later, and I've been labeled a rat by the community that is sponsored by Patrick Byrne, Ivan Franklin, General
Oh.
Flynn, that whole fucking circle jerk.
Well,
right?
see, you're getting exactly to what I wanted to talk about right there, George, because see, Ivan Raiklin, so look, here he is on January 6th in the crowd wearing a mask. Now, wasn't he one of the most, anti-COVID? First of all, he's not anyone who was truly afraid of COVID and thought that a mask was going to do anything to help them did not have their nose sticking out of it. This is to cover his identity. It says Flynn, I think. Yeah, it does. And I think he's advertising Flynn. He's trying to hide his identity. What is he doing there? I mean, what was his purpose on January 6th? And again, some people are like, oh, you don't like Ivan Raiklin, so you're saying this and that. I don't start out not liking people. I liked Ivan. I met him at the Twitter files hearing in Congress, and I shared with him my report on the Twitter coup. I figured we were like-minded people, and I was just trying to, publicize my information. Same reason all of us use social media. I wanted people to know about the stories that I found important. I don't think it's good for the FBI to be infiltrating Twitter and deciding who can have free speech and who cannot have free speech. George, you were talking about the different lawyers that I write about. It all started with this. This is Judge Valerie Caproni, the former FBI general counsel, who I allege played a key role in installing the FBI into Twitter and spying on us all and doing things like, manipulating the media that can be used to villainize you and other people who had good intentions in going there on January 6th. So Ivan Raiklin, as I said, I intended to hire him to be my lawyer. I told him everything about my case where I needed a lawyer because I was getting jammed up by, what's her name, Nina Jankowicz. She lied to the court in Virginia and succeeded in getting a restraining order against me, denied me my Second Amendment rights for 2 years, and was trying to get me charged with a felony. They did a lot of things that I was luckily able to counteract with my counter lawfare skills, but Ivan tried to violate the restraining order that could have put me in jail. So he seems, in my opinion, to be part of an effort to jam people up and get them put in jail. Like I said, the stakes weren't as high, and I haven't had the kind of turmoil that you guys have had, but they're going for essentially the same thing. It's like a formula that they've got that they're trying to do to everybody. And so when I see Ivan fighting in Congress with Fanone, I just wonder if he's completely on the up and up or if he's not still playing a role. Because Fanone, I think we would agree, he was in on the sham that is January 6th, the setup that got you guys jammed up with years of court battles and years of trouble. I don't know if Ivan is not still part of that.
He made money off of it, no doubt. I sure as hell didn't. Book deals and tours. And, right after that incident happened with him and Ivan, he posted on Facebook, I need to be out there in the streets. I need to get the truth out about these Nazis and, these MAGA supporters. And Fanone's raising money. He's got a gift and go. And Ivan wants to sue now for defamation. And it's like, dude, I sat in jail and was called a cop killer for 5 years. And he's getting called a rapist. And he wants to sue now. It's like,
I think he posted the letter today, the cease and desist letter. But right, I mean, you think Ivan's not getting lots of additional support from having posted, first of all, his performance?
Sure. I'm sure. They put a gift saying go up. They start raising money, and it's pretty sad seeing it because a lot of people fall for it and they just don't know really what's going on. but I'm gonna start a Give Send Go, and me and the Ninja Turtles are gonna take on the deep state, and we're gonna take it all down. And we're gonna crush the deep state. We're gonna put them all in handcuffs. And people will fall for it. You know what I mean?
Will, did you get a chance to see this cease and desist letter that Ivan was putting around on Twitter?
Yeah, I saw it floating around. I didn't actually read the full thing, but yeah, I think January 6th defendants, for one, should not let other people speak for J6ers, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of, there are a lot of people who have helped the January 6th community, but there are also a lot of people who have tried to manipulate the community a little bit and who are not defendants and try to,
A lot, Will. A lot.
yeah, quite a few. There are quite a few people out there like that. And, I have no problem with a former January 6th defendant who is out there trying to do a good job and represent J6ers well. I don't have any problem with them getting attention for that. But I do have a problem with a few of these people who, they've tried to manipulate the community for years and been bad actors. Now Ivan is kind of his own special thing. And I don't, he did call himself like the number one. He was like the most responsible for January 6th or whatever, which is a bunch of baloney. But, Ivan, again, Ivan worked in an intelligence agency.
Those serious statements.
Yeah,
Those are serious statements.
Yeah, but I mean, he's been trained to manipulate people, and not everybody is quite as good at picking it up as, maybe we are. But, I do think overall Ivan's kind of a jovial guy. But, you got to realize he's always on a mission. And when he's saying outlandish things like that, he's trying to shape the narrative in one way or another.
Definitely. Now, Will, you were recently back in D.C., almost like there is among the January 6th survivors, defendants, whatever we want to call you guys, the J6ers, you guys have formed a kind of important camaraderie among some of you. You had this trip, I mean, it was almost like a high school reunion, right?
Yeah, well, we tried to, I think I started trying to promote it a few months ago, and there are other people promoting it as well. But to me, I wanted to go back and make sure people remember about what happened to J6ers, because the Trump administration seems to not want to talk about it. And, we were able to get a few of those issues front and center. They put the Trump website up that day, which I think was a win. A few of us took a tour of the Capitol. There were other people doing other things in Washington. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We do have a couple bad apples who are former J6ers, and, wherever they go, they try to get into a clash or contention. And, I avoided that. I just wanted it to be a positive day. And, 5 years to the minute from when I was in the Capitol in 2021, I was back in the Capitol and enjoying my Capitol tour. So I had a good time, and, glad I could do it with a few other January 6th defendants.
Yeah, I didn't go because I probably would have punched somebody in the face. But they know. When I was in jail with the original C2B guys, I was the friendly, lovable guy. The little fat ass running around. I was in a good mood because I knew I was innocent. Everybody else was in a bad mood, and I tried to lighten up everybody's spirits and be positive. And after I left, apparently that all changed in there. But unbeknownst to me, my fellow J6ers began a rumor calling me a rat, and I've defended myself and proved everyone wrong multiple times by certain characters that are elevated or have gotten a platform by other people or other groups, which is fine with me because I really didn't ask to be a J6er. I was kind of brought into this life. But yeah, I did decided not to go on this last J6 simply because of that. When guys are out there in the media crying that J6ers lost their families and their children and this and that, and they don't have any children or had any business or had a fucking pot to piss in before J6, and they're crying to the media, saying all this shit and how much J6ers lost, and they're basically listing all my categories down the list. It's a little frustrating, but it's also one of those things that you can't be silent about. I've voiced my opinion to the people that matter, and they can grift all they want, but to come face to face and be honky dory and shit, it's not going to fly like that.
What is C2B? You said you were in there with the C2B.
That's the jail, the pod we were in DC, the original.
The gulag.
Yeah, the original.
What's happened with that jail? Wasn't Marjorie Taylor Greene and somebody else were visiting there a lot and going to try to shut it down?
They went there twice. It was all political theater as well. And I told people that, and they all wanted to, kiss Marjorie Taylor's ass, but it all came out that she's a grifter too. She chased Trump around to raise money, keep her seat, retire, quit. It's all performative. And that was the frustration, I think, with all of us initially when we all got arrested and we're all sitting in jail and we're like, wait a minute, where's the other Trumpers? Where are the Trump supporters out protesting for us like they did for BLM or for this, the stuff for the Mexicans or for the illegals right now? Like, where were they for 6 months when we were all sitting in jail? And they were nowhere to be found simply because they knew better. They knew he couldn't do anything against the Biden DOJ. And here now you get a protest every weekend. No kings, no this. They're carrying guns.
But George, isn't all that stuff coordinated by the same people who are trying to jam you guys up? It's Norm Eisen. It's all the lawfare people. It's the same people, really, isn't it?
There you go. They're social engineering people for something much larger than what we can perceive, really.
And so, what do you think is next, George? Is this stuff? Do you have a positive outlook, or what do you think is going to happen?
Absolutely. We are definitely going to be vindicated. I believe we are going to have our golden moment. Even though everybody's got out and got their pardons and Trump got in, we're still looking for that really golden hoorah. And I know Will feels that too. But I think this little thing in Atlanta will help. Maybe he'll buy us 2 more weeks, some hopium. That's what me and Will are smoking in your post. We don't smoke weed. We smoke opium. And, that's all I can count on, man. Hopefully, it's in God's hands. There it is right there. I love that.
It's the thug life, man. And Will, what about you? What do you think, Will?
Yeah, to me, probably the top thing that we could get would be the truth of what happened that day, of government involvement, and then accountability for the weaponization of government. And you got to realize, like, I'm against government weaponization if it's directed at the left or the right? Like, having government force used against the people in that way is not a good thing for America. And you got to push back against it. And we need to make sure that kind of this macro trend toward, a more secure country at the expense of liberty and the rights of the people is not a good thing. Like, we should not be giving up our constitutional rights and be crushed by government weaponization, but every generation is going to have to push back on that. And I don't think there has been meaningful change yet in the Trump administration.
So you were also talking about how they altered video and stuff like that. I mean, I haven't done any kind of like hardcore study, but just in looking around X and the internet, I don't think anybody knows the details in terms of the video coverage and the logistics of the police, how they were dispatched and everything, to the extent that you do, and also in part due to evidence that you were able to obtain in your own case. Do you think that's accurate to say that? And if it is, are you going to write a book or something about this? Because your understanding of it is so deep. It's incredible.
Yeah, I probably will write a book eventually. I haven't begun working on that yet. I'm trying to get my PhD finished first. But yeah, I put a lot of time into the video, and there's still, I could do more even now, right? There's more to learn. essentially we have thousands and thousands of hours of video. And fortunately, January 6th happened before AI really took off. And so we have a visual record of the day that can be triangulated to other uh, pieces of that record. So if you have a clip of a police officer beating a guy from one angle, I could probably find it from 4 or 5 other angles, right? And when you can triangulate video like that, uh, it becomes much more difficult to fake it, right? Like even with the thing in Minnesota, you got people who are creating fake images and fake video of claiming what happened. Yeah, right there we got kind of a confrontation. But you know, there were a couple clips that I put out there, and I don't think there was a ton of alteration of the video. I think the bigger issue was the government withholding video, but there were body cams that were split in half. And if you know how these body cams are programmed, like when they begin recording, you're going to get a beeping pattern. And when they end recording, you get another beeping pattern. But we had files where the file would end without that beeping pattern, and then it would pick up again, you know, maybe 20 seconds later, and in between the officer was beating someone with their fist, and they never touched the body cam, right? So there was nothing touching the body cam that would have turned it off. There was no beeping noise to end the recording, um, and yet it began recording again right after that. And for one officer, this happened on 2 different occasions to where the video got split. And there,
So
here
what
we
does
got,
that what does that indicate, that the video's been edited?
yeah, that they edited it. But again, the problem with January 6th, when you got that much of a visual record, and I don't think they thought initially that people would go into the details like that, but when you got that much of a visual record, it becomes very difficult for you to fake it or, you know, manipulate evidence like that.
And we still don't really know. I mean, Ray Epps, he got off pretty light, right? I mean, there's so many obvious federal douchebags there. This guy that I'm talking to in this video is John Lee Riches, convicted fraudster.
Yeah, with I mean Ray Epps. So he did get charged, right? He got a misdemeanor. Like unlike George, who got a 12 count indictment, you know, Ray Epps, who dedicated his entire night the night before to trying to get people to go into the Capitol. And then on the morning of January 6th, we've got footage of him repeatedly going up to people hour after hour, pointing them toward the Capitol, saying, after Trump is done speaking, we're going there. And, you know, he was in that same group that was pushing the sign into police. He didn't get charged with assault like they did. So we do have questions, right? He got a pardon like, you know, everybody else did who was convicted. But, you know, why would you dedicate your life to that on the morning of January 6th? And a bigger question remains, like, why would the media want to go to a great length to defend him for telling people to go to the Capitol, right?
That's what I was going to ask both of you guys, is that when you look at a headline like this, okay, I Google either of you guys' names and it's the headline is like, oh, absolute piece of shit, you know, whatever the guy we're talking about, and did this, did that. And here's Ray Epps smeared by conspiracy theories. How does that?
Got a raw deal, yeah.
How do you guys feel about that?
If I see Ray Epps, I'm knocking him the fuck out. That's what I'm
Allegedly.
I'm knocking him the fuck out. I'll catch a charge for that.
Calm down, George.
Allegedly. He's not going to do that. He's joking.
It's boiling up. You know,
he's joking.
I can't. Revolver News did an article about that too. He said, "Oh, Ray Epps did all this, but George Tanios said, hold on, not yet. And it's 12 count conspiracy." You know, so like, you know, it's not going. I've been in the bar business and had a lot of people, and sometimes you have to lay down, you know, the law, and it's like, it wasn't me, it was the hand of God, you know. So if the hand of God's going to come down on him, you know, it's frustrating.
Allegedly,
that he can get away with all this, and the media could spin it. You know, it's the same thing with these Minneapolis people. They're all heroes and fighting for their cause, but we're all terrorists. You know, bigger than 9/11 and Pearl Harbor. It's just so bizarre.
Well, and I
But
think one thing I'd point out, Jason, is when you were a defendant going through the prosecution like that,
It's
you could
tough.
tell kind of the nuances of how they were treating you versus
Mhm.
people like Ray Epps and other people. And um, you pick up on that very keenly. And uh, yeah, like there were
Because
a
it's
lot
your
of,
life. It's your life. You know what I
yeah,
mean? You're going through and you're like, holy cow, I can't believe this is happening. And it's pretty bizarre.
yeah. Like at one point I asked my prosecutor, like, why did this guy from Kansas City who had like 3 felony charges, including I think he had an assault charge, why did he get a misdemeanor plea deal, and you're trying to get me to plead out to a 15-12 with a range of 41 to 51 months, a charge that ultimately got thrown out by the Supreme Court. um, Now that guy did cooperate against his co-defendants from what I understand, but yeah, I mean, you pick up on the, like, when people get a misdemeanor plea deal and they're not handing them out to just anybody. If you have a felony charge like that, you pick up on that.
now, sorry, one more question though, George, about the Revolver article. Darren Beatty is now part of the Trump administration. How come these
Right.
guys aren't doing anything
Right.
to
I was going to bring that up. Same thing with Cash Patel. These guys, they know who I am. And they know what happened to me on a personal level as far as how the FBI set me up and put me through all that. So, but I'm a nobody. I wasn't asked to be in this position, and I'm not here fighting for accountability and all that like others are, simply because I have to protect my family. I'm not a free soldier like someone else like Jake Lang or some of these other quote unquote heroes that are heroic J6ers. I have a family to protect. I can't be out there in the public. I mean, this is as far as it gets for me, talking shit on the crowdsource the truth, which is good enough for me. I know that's the alley that we're in here. So
Thank you.
I guess say it's satire, you know what I mean? And I don't want any fights with the previous DOJ and the administration. I don't want any issues with this administration. You know, whatever happens, happens. My faith is in God's hands. I love President Trump. He's my president, but I'm not begging him for retribution or some type of restitution simply because it's not in my hands. But then you have other J6ers that are, that were violent that day, and they're the ones crying the hardest, saying we need to be, suing for 500 million, this and that. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I hope Team
Actually,
Trump, the real Team Trump, understands that
isn't
we're
there a
not all
lawsuit though,
the.
George? Didn't somebody bring some kind of big lawsuit?
So there have been talks about it. Jake Lang was another, prominent J6er that said he was going to sue for 5 billion and all this bullshit. But a large majority of us have signed on with Mark McCusker, the gentleman from the Black Lives Matter protest in Louisiana, the one with the gun. But
Get your facts right, George. St. Louis, McCloskey.
St. Louis, McCloskey. Sorry, I'm terrible. English was my second language.
And I haven't even signed up. I know that. Come on, George.
Okay, I'm sorry. No,
I'm kidding.
So what is that? What is that
It-
McCloskey
it-
lawsuit? What is he doing there?
Well, several of us have signed on, and he filed the forms to extend a potential lawsuit.
He's a lawyer, right, McCloskey?
He is a lawyer. I've personally spoke to him once, and it's really like we're all like run of the mill right now. There's 300 to 400 of us in this group that I was fortunate enough to get on because other law groups or other groups that were speaking have kicked me out of their calls because I was labeled a rat within the J6 community.
Oh my God.
So they can kiss my ass, but I'm here tied to this, and it turns back to Sidney Powell and her organization and all these different characters that, in my eyes, I don't know if they're true Trump supporters. I'm a 3-time Trump supporter, but I'm also a Trump supporter from, I don't want to say from birth, but I grew up in his casinos as a kid. And, I'm a capitalist and I'm a business owner. And I always looked up to the guy from what he put through together and, being in that market. So I'm a Trump supporter by my.
But you bring up an important point, though, about Sidney Powell and Patrick Byrne, because now with this raid from the FBI today, they've been back in the news.
Right.
And I'm a little concerned about that. It goes back to our questions about Ivan Raiklin, is that it seemed like, yes, okay, obviously they're, famously rambunctious Trump supporters, but, when I tried to contact Sidney Powell and tell her, hey, you can't use this guy, Dennis Montgomery, as your star witness, she didn't say, oh, that's interesting information that I didn't know. Thank you. I'll call you if I need anything else, or I'll consider it. She got all bent out of shape. You guys have probably seen the video where I asked Patrick Byrne about Mary Fanning, and he freaked out. And he's supposedly worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and he basically assaulted me. That's weird behavior to me, because somebody that rich should not want an active pro se person like me coming and bringing lawsuits against them. So when they have these kind of violent reactions, I start to think what you're talking about, George, if I understood what you're saying correctly. Are these people doing what they actually say? Are they authentic?
Right. And I've been following this long enough, before J6 and, going back to Pizzagate, from the beginning of Pizzagate, not to mention that, but just following online and following different personalities and characters, and then going into the Stop the Steal and and that didn't motivate me to go on J6. I just wanted to go, it was one day off in 2 years. So it wasn't like this driving force for me to go there with 2 tomahawks and storm the Capitol. You know what I'm saying? I just followed these characters and these people that are, supposedly now for J6ers and all that. And it's just so odd seeing it all play out. Lynn Wood is a big account, or a big name that I'm sure you know of.
Yep.
And just, I don't know. It's just all so odd to me. I remember this video that you're sharing right now, watching that, saying, wow, this is so weird.
Yeah.
And then
actually,
yeah,
I don't remember what rabbit hole I got down, but I think I began looking into Patrick Byrne a little bit, and that led me to your page, Jason, and that video. That's why I initially followed you, probably like 3 or 4. But you were banned from Twitter at the time, right? But I followed
probably.
You.
Yeah. But
well,
I mean, he went crazy. Not to make it about me, but just this guy, Jeremy Oliver.
He was at the Capitol too. How come he wasn't charged?
I know, and you know what? He was also in the kitchen of what's the guy's name from West Virginia who ran for Congress? He's a nice guy. I'm so sorry, I'm forgetting his name.
Derek Evans.
Not Derek Evans. He was like a whistleblower for some agency. Oh man, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. I did an interview with him with Charles Ortel.
See, yeah, when I started following you too, I started seeing this, and I'm just like, what is going on? And you look like a social engineer too, to some extent.
Me?
Jason, yeah.
What do you mean? I'm just asking him questions.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you're asking questions, so you not engineering in a bad way, but you're asking serious questions. And here's Patrick, grabbing the mic.
Right.
It was just so weird to me. And then just a couple months later, he's donating 150 grand to this J6 or 150 grand to this J6, and I'm just like, what is going on here? And they never once reached out to me and said, hey, are you okay? You need anything?
Right. Well, this guy had a gun. This guy with the stupid tie had a gun. Right. Captain America is like a meth head. I don't know what the hell was going on over here, but I should have sued Patrick Byrne. But I got enough lawsuits on my hands, really. Well, guys, it's always a pleasure to speak to both of you. I guess we're at the start of a journey here with this Fulton County business. Is there anything that we haven't covered tonight? Anything either of you guys would like to say before we wrap up?
Well, it occurred to me, because you were there at the Capitol too, Jason, although you kind of filmed from behind the wall, but, I've never looked, but your video might have picked up George, because you were kind of filming in the direction that George would have been in. So that would be kind of interesting to go back and look at your footage, and maybe George could figure out if
that would be cool.
Was actually recorded by you.
I mean, I was running in the opposite direction. So literally, and that's why they didn't want me going to trial. The moment the crime happened, my co-defendant sprayed, they tried to say I was recording the incident and I was coaching him through it with my earpiece. And as I'm recording, I'm running in the opposite direction. So yeah, you may have caught me running back. Yeah, it would have been pretty good.
You know what I meant to do, but I just got so caught up in other stuff. So when I am doing my live streams, I'm also recording locally on my phone, and then sometimes I'm in this other mode where there's an even higher quality version recorded in the phone on the gimbal. And so what I'm able to do, like in other words, that one I just showed where I did all the blow-ups of Ray Epps, I went back to the original least compressed recordings, and it really allows me to make a much higher quality version. I was going to go through and do it for this whole video, but it's such a long video. It's 5 hours. It's such a long project. I mean, for years I was like, oh, for the 5th anniversary of January 6th, I'll make like a 4K director's re-release, of a remastered version of it, but I did not yet have a chance to do that.
See here, yeah, you were filming from back at the street by the wall.
Yeah.
And George would have kind of been
to
the right there, right of the frame.
Well, does anybody else have a continuous 4 hour and 57-minute video of the day?
There are longer recordings than what you have. Like,
really?
Yeah, Stephen Ignoramus, I think, recorded for 8 or 11 hours.
Stephen Ignoramus is the guy's name.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Steve Baker, he's the other Steve Baker. We got two Steve Bakers, but yeah, he goes by Stephen Ignoramus, but he may be, I haven't seen him in a while. He may be banned from Twitter again, but
actually, let's talk about that real quick before we go. But the pipe bomber and all this stuff that I don't know which is more of an ignoramus, but Steve Baker has got his pipe bomber story. What do we think of that?
Well, I will. He came up with an interesting theory, and when he came out with it, I cautioned him and said, hey, if you don't have every I dotted and T crossed, like there are agencies in our federal government that are able to manufacture an alternate reality, like an alternate story, cover story. So I'm kind of at the point where I'm not sure if the guy that they arrested is him or not. It could be, but and I know that Steve has a few things that he hasn't ever released before, but yeah, they do have that ability to kind of cover their tracks on things, and I've seen that in things that I've put out before. But whether or not they're doing that in this situation, I'm not sure, just because I'm not like directly researching it. Like the pipe bomber has always kind of been like not a big priority for me. I'm aware of like a lot of the details. I'm probably aware of more details than almost anyone, but there are a few people that really specialize in the pipe bomber. And, I never wanted to really devote my time to that because I had other interesting things that I wanted to track down. But
it's such a vast event, isn't it, Will? I mean, like you just said, there are people who have specialties within the research of January 6th. There's nothing else really like it in history.
I want to go on the record. I think Ivan is the pipe bomber. I will go on the record here now.
Well, tell us why, though, because I know you're not joking when you say that.
No, I'm definitely not joking.
The gate, definitely the gate height.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, well, but he did that gay video with him running with the bomb, and it definitely did. Him and what's her name?
Vandersteel. Yeah, Ann Vandersteel, the #1 name in news.
You see, and then he did a video saying, I know where to find the pipe bomber piece, and he went to the little Home Depot close by and found it. He
knew how to put that bomb together. We know that.
Well, I mean, it wasn't even a real bomb. It was a joke, but
we're kidding though, but we like to troll Ivan with that one.
No, I really think he's the pipe bomber.
Well, that's George's opinion. He's allowed to have that opinion.
No, I absolutely think he is. And I think that's pretty crazy as a conspiracy and that he could get away with it. But, we don't know. You
don't know for a fact. And you're not, I don't mean to speak for you, but to just say that.
That's my educated guess.
Your personal opinion based on public domain facts that you've seen.
I've actually found evidence for Ivan being the pipe bomber too, because when I was in Washington in October 2024, like somebody had sidewalk chalked on the sidewalk that Ivan is the pipe bomber.
I don't know if that's
And
evidence, though.
right outside the federal court. I mean, I think that's pretty convincing. And that was actually a couple days before I ran into you at Madison Square Garden, Jason.
That was another great moment.
You know,
Yeah.
if once you see it, you know, and I know it sounds crazy, but he was at a hearing once, and they said, well, maybe the pipe bomber's in this hearing, and he smirked.
Oh, I remember that.
You know?
I remember that.
And I was like, wow, that's kind of funny. And, you know, as a poker player, and not that I play poker a lot, but
it's a tell, isn't it? And
there's
even
a lot of
making the
tells.
video with Ann Vandersteel is a tell. So that's what I mean. You're allowed to hold the opinion. He can't sue you for defamation for saying,
no.
based on his behavior, I think he's the pipe bomber. We haven't proven that, but I agree with you, George. I think that it's a strong possibility. He's definitely a very sketchy, weird guy. But I guess we'll find out what happens with his lawsuit with Fanone. I mean, even if the lawsuit happens, even if Fanone loses, this is exactly the type of stuff these lawfare actors get involved in to distract people from the truth, to, you know, sort of, you know, set themselves up as adversaries when they're potentially actually allies. You know, that big argument in public where nobody gets arrested for cursing. And then, frankly, even the chairman of the hearing was like, bink, 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 okay, Mr. Fanone, thank you. And it's like, wait a minute, the guy's cursing and screaming.
Yeah.
It's totally bizarre. But guys, I want to thank the two of you for coming on the show, and I hope that things continue to go your way, and that your future is enriched in some bizarre way. Sometimes these things over time have a way of working out. If you write a book, Will, and it becomes great, and maybe George, somehow, you know, you've been drawn closer to your family or anything like that. I don't know, but I do appreciate you fellas. I'm glad to have you on. Something else you want to say, George?
I'm looking to reopen my restaurant in some capacity. So, you know, I get a lot of support from my previous customers. I was in high demand back then, you know, and it's one of those experience things, not just eating and ordering food, you know, and a lot of people miss that here in our town. So I think I'll be fine in the long run. And I think most J6ers will be, but you know, a lot of these bad actors out there are still giving us a bad name. And until we get to the bottom of it, it's going to continue. And we have to learn how to weather the storm as it continues, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll keep talking about it. Will, any final words before we go?
Yeah, pleasure to join you, Jason, and George. Good to talk with you as always.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah, I think it'll be a bright future, and regardless of what other, you know, if you have a bad apple here or there that are, you know, they're going to do crazy things, but I think more and more people are seeing that every J6er is unique in their own way, and I think George is going to go on and have, you know, a great success rebuilding his business and having a restaurant, great food. And other people are going to do other great things. And a decade from now, I think most J6ers are going to be more known for the great things that they're doing in life than they are for January 6th. So,
well said, Will. You've got
God
a
willing.
positive perspective and a great outlook. I want to thank both of you guys for joining me tonight. I want to remind everybody that they can sponsor Crowdsource the Truth by going to subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. or crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. Don't forget to follow me on X at JG_CSTT. Thanks for watching, everybody.